Hello and welcome to Ohio Stadium, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and today, home of the first college football program in the entire nation, Tony. That must mean they're the best. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights, Tony Gerdeman, you wait all year for it, and now it's here. It is Rutgers Day.
Yeah, it's 7 glorious days of Rutgers week. Everybody has their Rutgers Advent calendar counting down the days. And here we are. Day one is what? Gabagool?
Gabagool, yes.
Day two.
Day two, they make all the R's on the Toys R Us signs backwards that's a big one.
Day 6 is the pork roll, which is the best day.
Tony, in celebration of Rutgers Day, what exit do you live off of?
Honestly, I do not know what exit because
this is I know you're not a true New Jerseyan.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get to the availability report in just a minute, but we want to start with just a little. I mean, there's some stuff going on in college football today. I guess we have to start with Michigan. Michigan up 10-0 on Iowa midway through the second quarter. So the game's over, right?
Yeah, as long as J.J. McCarthy doesn't throw 2 pick sixes or they have a fumble return. I saw the first touchdown was like an end around by Ronnie Bell, and he kind of walked in from like 15 yards. And then, that was about it. That was all they needed. As we know, Iowa offense is terrible. Defense is pretty good, but not good enough.
Yes, and Spencer Petras, 4 for 8 for 61 yards, leading rusher, 3 carries, 10 yards. I mean, an offensive explosion, I would say. A couple other interesting games of note. Ole Miss up 16-6 on number 7 Kentucky, who we talked about this on the Saturday morning show. Might not actually be the 7th best team in the country, despite the little number next to their name.
Yeah, I had Ole Miss in that one.
Yep. And one thing I didn't see coming, TCU 20, Oklahoma 10 late in the first. 20 points to TCU in one quarter is not – I mean, Oklahoma just lost to K-State, so you figure they're probably not a real serious playoff contender. That's got to be a little concerning for a coach who's made his bones as a defensive guy.
Yeah, I saw a stat, I think it was on Fox, saying Brent Venables might become the first Oklahoma coach ever to lose his first 2 conference games, which is not something you want to be the first at.
That immediately makes me wonder, who the heck did John Blake play? Because, boy, they did not win a lot of conference games back in those days.
I guess you got Kansas certainly in there.
Could be. Purdue 10, Minnesota 3. That's another one. Minnesota has kind of become a darling of a lot of folks, and I was buying in, but
is that in West Lafayette?
It is in Minnesota.
I thought Minnesota was a good pick there.
Yeah,
it's early, Tom. It's early.
It is
Stop
early.
Trying to
it is early.
Bets.
It is early. So we're going to do a quick run through, and then we're going to hit some questions. But a quick run through first on the availability report. Here we go. We're going to run through it. We'll give them to you in alphabetical order because that's obviously the order that you guys most want them in. Omari Abor, Cameron Babb, Cameron Brown, not a big surprise. We figured Cam Brown is probably going to miss another week. Jansen Dunn, Tyler Friday, Paula Ie Naoteote, Jordan Hancock, again, not a big surprise. Cam Martinez, that's that we hadn't heard, but, at some point, they're going to run out of corners because Cam Martinez and Tanner McAllister were kind of after the top 2 this week. Those were kind of the next guys who would be in that kind of outside corner rotation, and now you don't have Cam Martinez. Lloyd McFarquhar, Mitchell Melton, neither a surprise there. Taraji Mitchell out again, Kevin Pryor out again, Joe Royer out, but Jackson Smith-Njigba again. I think we –
what?
Well, out again.
Okay.
Yes, once again out. And, I don't know that there's – other than Cam Martinez, I don't know that there's anything on there that we didn't pretty much assume on Thursday this week where Cam Brown, you don't need to rush him back. Jackson Smith-Njigba, you don't need to rush him back. Honestly, I kind of wonder if Denzel Burke would definitely be sitting out if you didn't have Cam Martinez also out, and maybe he plays real sparingly today because this does not feel to be a game that's really going to challenge the Ohio State secondary. This feels like a lot to me like the game last week against Wisconsin where it's like, well, yes, it's Jair Brown and J.K. Johnson, but is Wisconsin really going to stress the Ohio State secondary?
Yeah, and we saw that they didn't. And will Rutgers do the same this week? I don't think so. I don't think Denzel Burke plays long. I'm wondering who the backup to Tanner McAllister is. Jansen Dunn is also out.
Yeah.
So is it Ryan Turner or I don't know who it would be at this point. And maybe you don't have a nickel per se. Maybe you just have Is it Court Williams? Is it Sonny Styles? Where they're not really a nickel, but who else do you have there? Is it going to be one of the young corners, Jair Brown?
Yeah, and Sonny Styles, to me, he's exciting. And I have a feeling we're going to get a question about Sonny Styles here in just a minute, so I don't want to go too in depth on Sonny Styles. But with someone like that, who is an early enrollee, just got here in the summer, I know they want to have all these guys cross-trained. If anyone would have an excuse for not being cross-trained, it would be Sonny Styles. So you wonder, is he really capable of doing that right now? And if not, I think that is a very excusable thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was him. I will be him. I'm just throwing out names because there's only so many names. And because I don't think you also want to keep Tanner McAllister out there for 4 quarters, maybe 3 quarters. But it's just one of the things as you look through and you're like, well, they'll be fine without Jackson Smith and Jigba. They'll be fine with this guy, without this guy, without this guy. But it's like, well, who is the next guy in at that particular position?
We have a super chat.
Jordan Kapler, any chance we can cut to an Aaron Judge at bat whenever Tom talks?
Jordan wants to know if we can cut to an Aaron Judge at bat anytime I talk. I mean, that's fine. You know what? For that comment, you deserve Yankee baseball. That's all I can say.
Why? I don't know why we need to cut to Aaron Judge when we can watch Tom strike out just fine right here.
All right, so since we love our listeners and viewers so much, and our listeners and viewers love us so much, I think we should take some questions from some viewers, and we do this lots of different ways. We will get super chats, we'll get chats on the thing. I don't think we've ever taken an in-person question from a YouTube regular before. We are going to break some new ground today. Steve Buckholz, you know him, you love him. If you have been in the comment section, here he is. Steve, do you have a question for us? Do you have a super chat? You want to give me $20, or do you have a do you have a question? You have a question for it? No.
Let me get back to you on that, okay? No, I want to comment about Sonny Styles and Caden Curry and Mike Hall. All 3 of them. I want to see them excel today. And it's just exciting. I wanted to come because I wanted to see a victory today, and I couldn't afford to come any other day. It seemed like maybe Indiana. But no, I love Buckeye Huddle. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing to Buckeye Huddle. And no, I'm glad I'm here, and glad you guys had me on for this little piece of time.
Cool. I am also looking forward to seeing what Sonny Styles does. We should get a lot of him on the field, maybe an entire second half somewhere, and they move him around from strong safety to a Sam linebacker type of thing.
I think he's coming in before the second half. Yeah. I think he's going to be big time in the first half. Tony had a great article about Sonny on BuckeyeHuddle.com, but if you don't subscribe, you didn't see it. I mean, it was a great article. Everybody loves Sonny. The coaches love him. The players love him. And I've been watching him for 3 years, ever since I saw his highlight film, and just expecting big things. Loved Lorenzo. I'm old enough to remember Lorenzo. But, yeah, go Buckeye Huddle and go Bucks.
No, Tony has to give you $20. Wow, this is the velocity of money. We're working out economics here. Steve, thank you for joining us.
Go Bucks.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And if you are a regular viewer and you do find us out on campus shooting somewhere or on a visiting trip, please do come up and say hi. We greatly enjoy getting to meet you guys because we feel like we know you, but we don't actually know you. So if you do find us, please do come up and say hi. Sonny Styles is an interesting person to kind of keep an eye on today, because I feel like of the guys he named, Mike Hall, you're going to see Mike Hall in the first half. Sonny Styles, you're probably going to see him in the first half, but you're not necessarily like first drive. But
Wisconsin.
You did, which I'm going to be real intrigued to see where does he play and where does he come in as compared to people like Court Williams, some of the other guys who are in that safety rotation, but, maybe not starters. You figure you're probably going to see, Lathan Ransom was not on the availability report, so you assume he's back. So you would assume probably it's Hickman and Proctor and McAllister starting. And then what order, where does Sonny Styles come in after that in terms of Lathan Ransom, in terms of, Court Williams, any of the other guys who were in that safety mix. I'm kind of like running through safeties in my head and going, no, he's out.
Yeah.
No, he's out. No,
Still
he's
got
out.
Guy Stokes, but
There you go.
he was also partly responsible for the 75-yard touchdown last week. But true freshman, that's going to happen. I do think maybe we saw Sonny Styles in that first series last week because there was no Lathan Ransom. So Lathan Ransom being back now, I think pushes back Sonny Styles plays and the opportunities in the first half. But Lathan Ransom can come in and play free safety, and Sonny Styles can play strong safety if they want. But Ronnie Hickman hardly ever comes off the field until it's time for the starters to leave. So I think you'll see maybe Ransom and Proctor switching a little bit, but the way Josh Proctor's been playing, you don't want to take him off the field that much.
Yeah, this is like the exact opposite of several previous Ohio State seasons where it's like, wow, they have too many good safeties. It's like that has not been the problem in previous seasons always. So file that under good problems to have. Things we can file under other problems to have. It's a little windy out here. That's
How's the sound, Kevin? Are we doing okay? Any complaints?
Yeah, people no complaints about the audio. The picture got stopped for a second, but we don't know if that was one person or everybody.
And that's not necessarily the picture getting soft is not necessarily something people would complain about either. So, yes, they did have to do that with Sybil Shepherd. Kevin, speaking of timely references, Kevin diving in from 1987. Thank you, Kevin.
I'm always here for a moonlighting drop.
Yes. So these Rutgers games are always, I feel like we kind of are having the same conversation before a lot of these that we do before the Arkansas State game, the Toledo game, where it's, how much are you going to see early from the starters? And then how quickly are you going to see the backups? And how much are you going to see of the backups? Is this a game where you see Devin Brown throw 5 passes? Is this a game where Dallin Hayden runs for 100 yards? Is this a game where you see another big play out of Jaden Ballard? There are a lot of kind of, Bennett Christian. Will we see Bennett Christian's first career catch today? It feels like a lot of that stuff is potentially on the table if they come out and handle Rutgers in a way that they've handled Rutgers early in games in the past.
Before Bennett Christian gets his catch, T. Scott needs a catch this season.
That's true. He needs a touchdown this week.
He does not need a touchdown. He just needs a catch. To the 1, perfect, fine. A 1-yard catch from the 2 to the 1, perfect. Don't need that guy getting in the end zone just yet. Not until next week, perhaps, when he's part of my bold predictions. There's a bold prediction for you.
You'll be sleeping on the couch. It'll be fine. So, yeah, it is. This is the 5th home game in a row to start the season. And I was thinking walking in, I'm sure people kind of roll their eyes and it's Rutgers. Okay. You know how the game's going to go. Okay. As soon as the ball is kicked off, we are going to be more than halfway through the home schedule, which is crazy on October 1st. But this season is flying by. You're a third of the way through the regular season right now. You're halfway through the home regular season already. It is, this is one of these. Let's all take a moment to enjoy college football season. It is perfect college football weather today. Maybe a little chance of rain in the forecast. Didn't look like anything serious, but a little breezy. It's nice. It's good sweatshirt weather. It's this is, if you were apple picking or pumpkin picking, this is that type of weather too. This is good Midwestern fall weather, and these games are few and far between over the course of the year, so enjoy these games.
Since we always have concerns about the weather, does the wind worry you? Not worry you, but is that a worry for Ohio State throwing balls? CJ Stroud, maybe the deep stuff more than the short stuff. We don't know what it's like in there, but it's going to be circular.
Yeah.
It will eventually die down in the second half, but kicking off at 3:30, I think the wind is still going to be like it is now.
Yeah, and I'm just looking right now at the flag on the top of Independence Hall. That's blowing basically north to south. The smoke coming out of the McCracken power plant kind of blowing northeast to southwest. What, you don't know the name of the power plant here?
I'm trying to find out where my old dorm, Blackburn. Like, everything has changed. So I don't know exactly which new building Blackburn is anymore. But you know what? As long as the current students are happy.
The McCracken power plant was the subject of my favorite joke from when I took a tour of Ohio State as a high school student. The guy was on the bus driving around and narrating all these different things, and there's 2 smokestacks on there, and they said it's labeled as a power plant, but actually it's a memorial because every time a Michigan grad does something useful with their lives, they put up another smokestack. So that was that, and the shuttle. This should give you an idea how long ago this was. The space shuttle tiles were apparently made at Ohio State in the ceramics engineering program according to my tour guide, citation needed from 1994, and the tiles would fall off of the space shuttle, and NASA ended up figuring out that the issue was the adhesive, which was made at
Michigan.
Were you on my tour?
No, but I also know back in the 90s, our Wikipedia was bus drivers.
So yes, citation needed on that as well. We will get to some of your questions in a little bit. If you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. But I guess, Tony, what does success look like today for the Ohio State defense? I think this is a game where, if they give up 30 points, I think there's big red flashing sirens going off. But what does success look like today for the Ohio State defense?
I think 2 scores or less for the starting defense, baking in a big play here in one drive. Like anything more than that, I think it's a little concerning, and you shouldn't have that because this is not a very good offense. But then once you get into the second team defense in the third, fourth quarter, just those guys are going to be playing against starters, just like the second team offense for Ohio State will be playing against starters on Rutgers defense. So, just maybe not necessarily playing even, but with those guys just not getting beaten, playing. I would say playing even for the backups, but don't give up more than 2 scores for the starters.
And Rutgers on offense is going to be a little unpredictable today. They have potentially as many as 4 quarterbacks who could play in this game, depending on who's healthy and who's not. They have guys who, like Noah Vedral, hasn't played yet this year. Gavin Wimsatt, who is their star redshirt freshman quarterback, has played a little bit, was like sub 50%, got hurt. I mean, how much does that impact what Ohio State does? Johnny Langan, who we saw in 2019, apparently, as a Wildcat quarterback for them. How many, who's the guy who's actually played the most? It's someone who reminded me of Cody Simon, but I can't remember the.
Yes.
Yes.
Simon Avery. Simon.
Something.
Avery Simon.
Simon says. Evan Simon. Thank you. Yes, Simon says Evan Simon. So you've got potentially 4 different quarterbacks, but stylistically, those guys are not necessarily all that different. So I'm not sure how much of a concern that really presents for Ohio State.
No, the concern is when you bring out 2 quarterbacks that are playing the A11 defense, the offense, and you don't know who's going to throw it. But that is a concern when Johnny Langan is out there as a tight end, because he will play. He's a starting tight end. He'll be out there, and so they can do some trick plays. And really, that's one of those things. If Rutgers is unsuccessful with all of their trick plays, they should only have like 1 touchdown, and that's just me giving them that drive. Like, without any big plays from the trick plays, it's really going to be difficult to mount any kind of attack offensively. Now, they are a hard-nosed program. One of the things that the players said, the Buckeyes said this week, is Rutgers never quits. That's the thing you notice about them. And they'll be getting beat by 40 points, and they're still going at it. And I think that's one of the reasons Ohio State has maybe struggled to cover against Rutgers over the years. Not last year when it was a 15.5-point line, but with the bigger lines. And we saw this line actually drop a couple of points from the time it was released.
Yeah, and the last time Rutgers was here was 2020. That was a primetime game. There was no one here, so it was a kind of a weird atmosphere. But that was a game where Ohio State jumped out to a big halftime lead, and then Rutgers just kind of did the can't touching you can't not get you can't get mad, not touching you can't get mad thing for the entire second half, where they just did a bunch of just dumb stuff. Just throw back on a kickoff. Oh, here's a trick play. I think they ran a hook and lateral at one point. They were, but Ohio State made a bunch of silly little mistakes with younger guys. I remember Julian Fleming dropping a pass on that he would have scored a touchdown on, and so that ended up being a game where you just sort of never saw the backups, and it was Rutgers, and Ohio State was up by 35 points or whatever it was at half, and somehow they didn't play the backups at any point. So you wonder if that probably has prepared Ohio State a little more for the fact that this is a 4-quarter game, and I'm sure there's always a risk of overlooking a team that you're a 40-point favorite against. That might help keep people a little bit more focused.
That's why I talked about, Tom, what is competitive stamina? Is that what Ryan Day is preaching? Just it's about Ohio State. It's not about anybody else. That's something the players were also talking about. They're not worried about the opponent. It's just competing to the standard that has been set at Ohio State, and that the standard that they want to uphold this year, knowing that they fell short of what they wanted to do last year. And so the reason, the way you keep from falling short and keep from overlooking opponents is to keep your focus on yourself, I'd say.
Yep, and that's sort of been the message for them against the Arkansas States and the Toledos, and for the most part, they've done a pretty good job of living up to that standard, I would say. So we've talked a little bit about the offense, we've talked a little bit about the defense. Give me someone who is not a starter, so don't give me Travion Henderson, don't give me Mayan Williams, don't give me CJ Stroud. Give me someone who you think has a potentially a big play, like a pick to click, but not a, not a regular starter who always does this.
Offensively, this might be the time we finally get to see some of the freshman receivers play more than just as blockers for Dallin Hayden and TC Caffey down the stretch. So Tom, now that you've tricked me into this, you've roped me into this, this is where I have to go with Caleb Brown to make a play out of the slot at some point, assuming they're actually out there and they get to play and that Ohio State doesn't negate on that competitive stamina. So I guess you're making me. The problem is, Tom, all of these guys that play are starters. Like Jaden Ballard is not a starter, but he plays a lot. Xavier Johnson plays a lot. I'm trying to go deeper. That's why, with the bold predictions, why I struggle so much is because I'm too bold. So I will continue that and go, let's say, watch Caleb Brown, watch Keon Graves do something in this one.
That is a little too bold, I think. Well, I was going to say, and I was going to name another true freshman. This feels like a game where you see Dallin Hayden in the second quarter, and you probably see a lot of Dallin Hayden. And I think they're going to want to keep, you're going to want to give Henderson and Williams carries, but I also don't think you're going to want to give Henderson and Williams 20 carries. So you're going to probably see Dallin Hayden early-ish, potentially. Have we seen him in the first half of a game yet this year? I don't know that we have.
I don't know if we have.
I don't know that we have. And this feels like a game where you might see him a little early because you're going into Michigan State, and Michigan State is not very good this year, but that's also generally a pretty physical game. So you're probably trying to get some of the starters out a little earlier this week, keep guys fresh for that Michigan State game, because then you have a week to rest up after because you've got an off week after that. But you want to make sure guys are at least healthy, relatively rested. So I think you may see some of those Dallin Hayden's, Jaden Ballards a little earlier than you might normally.
Well, and as I was saying earlier, Dallin Hayden's going to be going against the starting Rutgers defense, but he may still have some of the starting offensive line out there when he does it, so that will help. But yeah, and anytime we can get a look at Dallin Hayden is a good thing because he is fun to watch and he'll just continue to get better and better. And if something happens with Mayan Williams or Travion Henderson, you want him to have as many reps under his belt as possible.
And we've talked a good bit this fall about the use of Kyle McCord. And I feel like they need to make sure they're giving Kyle McCord a drive with the ones. And it doesn't have to be, they don't have to pull CJ Stroud in the middle of the first quarter or anything like that. But pull CJ Stroud, give Kyle McCord a drive, maybe two drives with the ones, because he is, as they say in the Marines, one bullet away. He is one play away from being the guy who will be trusted to run this offense. You saw him with the ones last year against Akron for a full game, but you haven't really seen. Have they? I think maybe they've done one drive with him with the ones in like the Arkansas State game. It just feels like all year they've had weird things where they just haven't had a lot of plays on offense. So you've seen CJ Stroud stay in there longer than you might normally have assumed, which has meant not a lot of snaps for Kyle McCord, not a lot of snaps for Devin Brown. And, I think there's value in that for his long-term development, obviously. But I think maybe more importantly, there's value in that you've got to have him ready, because if something happens with CJ Stroud, help me, Kyle Juan Kenobi, you're my only hope for the Ohio State offense at that point.
This is where coaches show how paranoid they are when they won't go to a backup quarterback when they're up by 4 touchdowns, because you never know what can happen.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you know what cannot happen? Ohio State could be up 4 touchdowns in the third quarter against Rutgers, and Rutgers is not going to win. That's why I would like to see, go ahead and throw CJ Stroud out there for that one drive in the third quarter, and then bring in Kyle McCord, game score willing, bring in Kyle McCord after that. Let him go a drive with the ones, at least the first team offensive line. If you want to get Abeka and Marvin Harrison and those guys out, that's fine. But let Kyle McCord live with the first team offensive line and just play it as if CJ Stroud was out there. Because you don't want to do this in the fourth quarter. You don't want to be throwing the ball around in the fourth quarter. So do it with 8 minutes, 9 minutes left in the third quarter where you can't be accused of running anything up because it's still, you're not even halfway through the third quarter.
Well, and run things exactly like you would run them with CJ Stroud is exactly right, because then you're pulling CJ Stroud out, putting Kyle McCord in, which is less running it up than it would be if you just had CJ Stroud still in there. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I have been a little surprised at how little you've seen McCord thus far this year, because the head-to-head comparison there is McCord and JJ McCarthy, and obviously the other head-to-head comparison there which is Cade McNamara and CJ Stroud, which is kind of the reason why one is playing more than the other. But in 2023, JJ McCarthy's returning starter. How many snaps does Kyle McCord have this year? Not that many. You gotta handle this year. Kyle McCord is a part of this year. Kyle McCord is probably a lot of next year. So I think that's going to be a big thing for them to get.
These next 2 weeks are a very good opportunity for Kyle McCord to get a lot of snaps if they play it right.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see how Michigan State. Does Michigan State play today? I feel like they might be off this week, but it is definitely.
No,
do they play? Yeah, they have. Did they play last week? Yes, they play Maryland. That's right, and Maryland's a 7.5-point favorite at home. Oh boy.
I took Maryland.
Yeah, it was the $95 million extension for Mel Tucker might not be great. Speaking of things that are not great, Iowa still scoreless at halftime, 13-0 Michigan.
I thought that was
at
when
the
they were going
break.
to throw to Kevin's package.
Oh no, I didn't even think about the packages. We should throw to the packages. Let's see. Where do we want to go first? Do we have? You know what? Let's go to Alex Gleitman. This is not the single biggest recruiting weekend of the entire season, but it is going to be a weekend where Ohio State's got some significant targets on campus, and there's some exciting news on the just interesting news on the Ohio State recruiting front on the whole. So let's hear from Alex on what's going on with recruiting.
Hey, Ohio State fans. Welcome to the Gleitman Bowl this week. For those of you who don't know, I cover Rutgers in addition to Ohio State. So this is a really exciting week for me every single year. And it's going to be another exciting weekend for Ohio State, I think. 41-point spread. Not expecting too close of a game, having covered both of these teams, but you never know what you're going to get. So it will be exciting to watch. But on the recruiting front, Ohio State certainly has work to do outside of what they plan to do on the football field. Last week against Wisconsin was a great game, again, on the field as well as on the recruiting trail. Keon Keeley, 2023 5-star defensive end, was in town. By all indications, that visit was fantastic. I think Ohio State is in really good shape here, but he is taking an official visit to Alabama on October 8th. They're the Buckeyes' main competition for his services, and getting Nick Saban in a room or in multiple rooms with recruits for 48 hours is not the most ideal scenario if you're the team that's fighting against Alabama for a recruit. So we'll see what happens with Keon Keeley, but Ohio State did really well there. The other 2023 guy they had on campus last week, Caden McDonald, in for an official visit, caught up with him after that trip and, posted a little bit of an update there on the site in this past week's ADEC. So for those members and subscribers of Buckeye Huddle, go please check that out. Some great stuff from Caden McDonald. Sentiment there is Ohio State is absolutely in the game here. Will they land him? I don't know. I'd probably take the field, but Ohio State's certainly in the game now, and that's not something we were talking about just 2 weeks ago even. So those are just two storylines from last week to keep an eye on. There's a lot of other great stuff coming out of the weekend in Mark's Skull session in my ADEC. So again, if you're not a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com, please join, go check it out, get the inside scoop on Ohio State recruiting. This week, just really quickly to touch on what to expect, probably from Mark's Skull session and maybe my ADEC and some other things throughout the rest of this week following the game against Rutgers, is that Ohio State is hosting a handful of visits. It won't be as big as Wisconsin, certainly won't be as big as Notre Dame, but there was one big name that got added to the list this week. It's defensive lineman David Hobbs out of North Carolina. On3 has him as a 5-star. He's a high 4-star on the other sites. Someone we haven't mentioned at all regarding Ohio State recruiting. He actually just got an offer this week, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Ohio State is planning to bring him in for a visit. It's going to be an unofficial visit. Coincidentally and conveniently, his sister, a 2024 basketball prospect, is visiting with the Lady Buckeyes basketball team. So his parents and his sister were already coming up. David's going to come, enjoy the game, spend some time with the staff, start to build that relationship. Ohio State's facing a little bit of an uphill battle considering they haven't really been in this one where schools like UNC, Alabama, Tennessee, and others have. But huge opportunity, big need on the defensive line in this class. So maybe there's something here, but we'll certainly keep you updated when we catch up with David. And then the other thing to look at, 3 2024 prospects of note: wide receiver Jeremiah McClellan from St. Louis, tight end / defensive end Kylan Fox from Georgia, and 2024 defensive tackle Justin Scott from Chicago. All 3 have Ohio State offers. It's the first visit for McClellan and Scott, second visit for Fox, who earned an offer at camp this summer. Those are guys, they're not going to decide anytime soon, but Ohio State has an opportunity to make a huge move with them on the recruiting trail this weekend. That's all I got. Keep it tuned in to BuckeyeHuddle.com after the game for all of your recruiting updates.
All right, so thanks to Alex, and we're going to be wrapping up in about half an hour or so we can run in and see some of those recruits inside, get you some nice pictures for you. But before then, let's do another run through the availability report for people who are just joining us. I think the big news of the day is news that we kind of anticipated in terms of that availability report, which is Jackson Smith-Njigba out. Not a huge surprise. That has felt inevitable, and also, based on what we're hearing, probably mostly precautionary. Cam Brown also out this week. Not a big surprise in either of those fronts. Denzel Burke not on the availability report, so he's presumably playing. We have seen that not necessarily correspond to him playing in the past, but not on the availability report this week. So that's presumably good news, and that sort of corresponds with what Ryan Day talked about on Thursday this week with the update on all the 3 of those guys. We have a super chat real quick.
Breaking news: ESPN's Pete Zamel. Rutgers will be without quarterback Gavin Wimsatt for the game.
Rutgers will be without quarterback Gavin Wimsatt for the game, according to ESPN's Pete Thamel.
Well, they've been without him most of the season. Recently. Right, he's been.
Yes. Yeah, Noah Vedral is a game-time decision. I'm going to guess, Tony, that does not materially impact your prediction for the game.
No, and it's kind of rude of Kevin to stop the show for that. What's this about now, Kevin?
Super chat.
All right.
Jason, has the offense become too tight end heavy? Are we getting too balanced? Also, where can I download the transcript for this show? I prefer to read these things.
Jason, thank you for your super chat. He would like to share his concerns that the offense might be a little too tight end heavy. Right. I'm wondering exactly how far in his cheek his tongue was when he said that. I'm guessing at least somewhat. But here in the year of our Lord 2022, the year of our Lord, the year of the tight end, it feels like this might be a here to stay kind of thing, at least for this season.
Yeah, if you don't like it, get out. Get out of the country. This is a tight end year of the tight end country. This is America. But yeah, I'm sorry that that's not right up your alley, sarcastically, of course. Yeah, I think you're seeing what this offense can do when the tight end is part of the passing game, and also when Jackson Smith-Njigba isn't. But that guy only averages 9 yards a catch this year anyway, so are they really even missing him? Kate Stover, I don't want to say he's replaced Jackson Smith-Njigba as the most dangerous weapon on this offense. I'll leave that to you.
So Jackson Smith-Njigba will not be playing. Kate Stover will be playing. No Cam Brown, probably Denzel Burke. We talked about no Gavin Wimsatt, no Vedral's a game-time decision. You wonder for Rutgers, they have a couple of games coming up that are more winnable games than this. You've got Indiana coming up, and there's another one that was, I think, Nebraska next week. Nebraska, an off week, and then Indiana, if I remember correctly. If you have game-time decision guys, it feels like it's probably in your best interest. You're probably not winning this one, and you probably know you're probably not winning this one. It feels like it's in your best interest to play for the games that you have a chance to win. Like you just kind of, before the season, you want to get Ohio State on the road because then it's one of your Big Ten road games. You weren't going to win it at home anyway, so you might as well lose it by 3 points more on the road than at home. Get those games at home. Get the winnable games because they have 3 wins right now. They could plausibly get to 6, but you probably got to win the next 2 weeks. So I think you probably, if I was Greg Schiano, I'd probably play it a little conservative there.
Yeah, especially Gavin Wims. He's young, but he's one of your best playmakers. And he's loaded with potential. If he's, a game time decision, the best way to make him unavailable for next week is to play a game time decision guy against Ohio State when they've got other quarterbacks who do similar things, and they can run with the quarterback or they can run with Johnny Legg and put him in their wildcat. So they could do some things that he would do without using him to do it.
And, I think we've seen Ohio State kind of get burned by that. They put Jackson Smith-Njigba back in against Toledo to try and get him kind of warmed up for the Wisconsin game, and then sort of aggravated his hamstring issue, and now has missed another couple games after that. So there is some value in playing things a little bit close to the vest there. Just to run through the rest of the availability report, other guys who are, we probably would have seen at some point today who are not going to be there. Amari Abor, we've seen him a little bit as the true freshman defensive end. Cameron Babb, you would love to see him on the field at some point. We had heard a couple weeks not that long ago, and then it's now been several weeks, and he's still not available.
This is feeling like maybe an Iowa game.
Maybe, after the bye week, that's a possibility. Cameron Brown, we mentioned Jansen Dunn, who you haven't seen a ton of, but with all the other defensive backs out, he seems like someone who might have been in the mix to play. Tyler Friday not playing today. Paul Ienaoteote not playing today. Jordan Hancock still out. Cam Martinez was kind of, I think, the surprise, where he's someone who, with Cam Brown out, with Jordan Hancock out, with Denzel Burke still a little bit of a question mark, he's someone who was possibly the third guy in that corner spot behind J.K. Johnson before Jair Brown. Behind those two guys, he might have been the next guy, either him or Tanner McAllister. Now he's not there. I don't think Rutgers is going to really stress this Ohio State secondary, but at some point, this is a little bit of a concern. You got to start getting some of these guys back.
Yeah, and we meant talking earlier in the show about who is behind Tanner McAllister now. Maybe a Kai Stokes.
Maybe.
But, you're probably. Lathan Ransom has played that position in the past. He doesn't necessarily care for it. He prefers playing deeper. But is that a guy that – do you replace Tanner McAllister with Lathan Ransom in the fourth quarter of a blowout? Doesn't seem like you necessarily would, but if you need a veteran out there, he could do that. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. Tyler Friday not being out there, more Caden Curry, more Kenyatta Jackson opportunity for the freshman. I think you'll see Javante Jean-Baptiste, obviously being a New Jersey guy playing against Rutgers. But everybody behind Tyler Friday in that depth chart moves up a little. And as Steve Buckholt said, maybe we see some Caden Curry, see him do some stuff.
Yeah, Caden Curry is someone who I would have on my list of people I'd be interested in seeing. Caden Curry, Sonny Styles, as Steve mentioned earlier. Those are guys who, you don't expect true freshmen to be out there making plays, but those are guys who I think are probably somewhere on that, your expectation is probably a little higher than it would be for a typical true freshman, because you've seen a little bit from Caden Curry where he's made most of his opportunities. Sonny Styles getting out there so early last week against Wisconsin tells you the coaching staff thinks he's ready to play. And that means a lot more to me than any of the sort of just happy chat that you sort of get.
Are we going to see any C.J. Hicks? Finally get some action from C.J. Hicks and see him out there in the fourth quarter running around, making some plays. Because he's been pretty quiet. I know a lot of people were really expecting him to play somewhere, do something. And he's at a kind of a deep position now with what they've got going on at inside linebacker. Not having a lot of inside linebackers, but maybe some C.J. Hicks, maybe some Reed Carrico, which we haven't seen much of other than special teams. Some young guys getting out there in the fourth quarter and making some plays in the backfield. Yeah,
Reed Carrico took a redshirt year last year, so he's going to be playing no matter what. He's on that kickoff team. Sonny Styles is also on that kickoff. C.J. Hicks, I was going to say, is also on that kickoff team. To me, if you're playing a guy as a true freshman in the kickoff team, that tells me you're expecting to play him on defense at some point during the season, because otherwise, if you're not, there's no sense in burning a year just for kickoff. It's a little like DeJuan Jones, where DeJuan Jones was on the kick block team, and it was like, well, now that he's on the kick block team, we might as well find a spot for him on offense, find something for him to do on offense, so you're not just wasting a year trying to block 2 field goals during the course of the season. So
you've also invested a lot of time with CJ, teaching him that special teams position. They spend a lot of time on that. So that is his role. That is his job.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to just take it away at game 5. Say, well, you can't play anymore because
Yeah.
we want to save that red shirt.
Yeah. Other guys not playing: Joe Royer, Evan Pryor, Taraja Mitchell, Mitchell Melton, obviously out for the season. Evan Lloyd McFarquhar, and that does it for the availability report. So, I don't think there's any shocks on there. I think, this is very much a game where they can be a little, they can be a little cautious with guys. If, guys who might play if it was Michigan might not play if it's Rutgers.
They were cautious last week against Wisconsin. I think that tells you how much better Ohio State is than everybody else, where they've been cautious with guys every single week because they know they can be.
Yeah.
But also because a lot of guys are just dinged up. And so I think that bye week is going to come at a good time. Everybody gets healed up. You take it easy this week, next week, you got a bye week. And then the season kind of begins at that point. The second part of the season begins.
And I think it shows you that coaching staff is looking at the opposing team film and going, yeah, we got this. It'll be fine. I would think. I mean, we'll see what it looks like with Michigan State next week. But you think it might look like that as well. We're going to run through our next behind the scenes package coming up in a minute. We've done a bunch of different things this year, kind of taking you to different sections of Ohio State. You as a fan probably don't get to see. Took you inside the tunnel, the Buckeyes rundown. Took you into the little room under South Stands one week. This week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to take you up to the press box. It is where Tony and Kevin are, where we do our post game show. So you'll see us up there after the game. But we're going to give you a little look at what that looks like inside there right now. This is the latest edition of our behind the scenes of an Ohio State football game day series. Right now, today, we're going to be looking at the press box. So this is the view from the press box. You get a pretty high up view. Nothing in your way though, so that's good. Get a good view of the stadium from up here. This is where all of the media, for the most part, works. All the writers from newspapers and writers from websites and a lot of the TV people who are not down on the field shooting their own video. They're all up here in the press box during the game, and then we'll just go down to the field like for the last 8 or so minutes of the game in the fourth quarter to get ready to go do post-game interviews. So when you're in the press box, you get a row, you get your own seat, your own assigned seat, and there's a whole row. This is the visiting side of the press box, and there's a couple of rows of seats up there. We're gonna go walk down through the rest of the press box and let you see some of their stuff. There's little booths there. That's for the game statisticians. There's a booth for them. We're gonna walk you down the hallway here and show you some of the other stuff that's up here. In addition to the media, this is also where the coaches stay. So the visiting team has their own coaches booth. You may recognize this. This is a spot where Kevin and Tony and I do our live post-game shows a lot of weeks after this. So you get your own little booth. When the visiting team shows up, they will have all their headsets and all that kind of stuff. And again, you got a pretty good view of the field. So and then there's a row of seats here, and there's another row up there just for extra coaches and all of that. So I'll walk you down here. And we're getting there's the Ohio State radio booth. There's the big suite that where the athletic director, Gene Smith, watches the game most weeks. Now we're getting there's the Ohio State coaches booth. Very similarly laid out. The Ohio State coaches obviously already here today, but you can see the headsets on the desk and all that kind of stuff. So now we're in the area where some media people might consider this the most important area. This is the media dining area where you get to go. They'll give you a meal before the game and have some hot dogs out or something like that at halftime, so you don't have to run out and go down to a concession stand to eat while you're working. Here's the dining area. This is actually not a bad place to be. Right now, this is about 5 hours before kickoff, but this is not a bad place to be during the pregame because they have a lot of games on. You'll have usually one big game of note on a couple of the TVs, and then there's a split screen one where you can watch a couple different games at a time, and then there's this scoreboard feed that's showing whatever is on the scoreboard at that point. So we'll walk down here and just take you up the stairs to show you the rest of the press box, because it is a big area.
There will be hundreds of people up here for certain games, big games, Notre Dame game to start the season, Michigan game at the end of the year. All of these seats will be full, and there are a lot of seats up here. So I'm going to take you up to the top of the third row. And again, this is probably going to look a little familiar because this is where we generally will shoot our pregame show. We'll pull a couple chairs aside, and for most games, there's no one up here. For the Notre Dame game to start the season, all these seats were filled. A lot of times you'll have NFL scouts up here, that kind of stuff. But this is kind of a look at the press box on the whole. There's some suites over there. You can get glass sides. That's where the high rollers will sit with the university president. And you look down, all of those seats, those are all media people or NFL scouts or someone else who is here working the game and not just watching for fun. Someone is working in writing or doing TV or doing radio, whatever it is. So that's a look inside the press box. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll take you back to the pregame show.
From DK, bold prediction, CJ will finish 11 for 11, and OSU fans will finally appreciate him as an all-time great quarterback alongside Tate Martell.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what you have to do. Tate Martell has set the standard to 10%. You want to be better than the national championship, it doesn't matter. I do Troy Smith can do it. You want to be the best. You got to do better than the best. Right now, he just drives that clear. So, she's a big one. So, yeah, I'll tell you,
From Brian, my 2-point prediction, CJ scores 2 rushing touchdowns.
Wow.
There's something wrong with your mic.
Good job, thanks.
All right, so Kevin broke stuff. Oh, Kevin.
And he broke the fourth wall.
And he broke the fourth wall. I mean, just destroying things right now.
Maybe we might be done.
We need to change the title. Buckeye Huddle pregame. Kevin Noon destroys the fourth wall. All caps. I mean, that's how it's done. I'm reliably informed.
Right.
So,
right.
Did we have a question after the CJ? Oh yeah, CJ Stroud, 2 rushing touchdowns today. Give me a percentage chance like that. I mean, the viewer, and I don't remember who he said put that in there. That feels like a lot more than a 2-pointer. Like there are games where that might be a 2-pointer. Rutgers, that feels like a 5-pointer.
Well, and I know, I believe Steve Buckholtz over here said CJ Stroud rushing as a 1-pointer. He has that as one of his. Uh-huh. Would you accept that? CJ Stroud, 1 rushing touchdown as a 1-pointer.
I would accept that as a 1-pointer. Yes.
2 feels like a 3 though.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where it's like exponential growth. Because I mean, you go back to 2018, which is a time, one of the last times Ohio State had a quarterback sort of who's similar to CJ Stroud in the running game, and Dwayne Haskins didn't do it. He had the one against TCU to kind of seal that game, but just didn't keep it. And then it was only when they really desperately needed it, and it was like overtime against Maryland. He had, I think, 3 rushing touchdowns in that game, but it was like all in the last 5 minutes of the game in overtime when you really, really, really needed it. I don't anticipate that this is a game that's going to get to overtime today.
No, I would agree. But
That's my bold prediction. 3 points.
I think this is also maybe where if he rushes it, it's going to be in the first quarter. I think something early, get it out of the way, and then not do it again.
What's our next question?
Yeah, I got the mics working again.
job, Taylor.
Stomping Peak. Put Williams in and do play action out of an eye a lot.
I would not be surprised if you saw that. Mayan Williams out of the I formation. That may be another one of those things where you run a bunch of stuff out of the eye, you establish some tendencies with the intention of breaking them. I think they have had some tendencies over the last year or so that they did not intend to be such strong tendencies. I think you might be able to have something where you set up a tendency
Yes.
to then break it later. And that, is that against Iowa? Is that, I bet Penn State is where you see some tendencies broken.
Yeah, I don't think you need to break anything in this game. Set the tendencies, lay the foundation for what you want to do down the road. And I know they always say like, well, we got to win this game. This is the most important game.
Is it?
No, it's not, Tom. In fact, it is not. The most important game are the games to come, and that's why you set the groundwork for what you're going to do later on.
All right, what's our next one, Kevin?
Had to turn my mic back on. Todd B. I want Michigan being 11-0 coming into the shoes so OSU can break them.
Okay, so Michigan being 11-0 coming into the horseshoe. I think coming into the season, I think we looked at that and said 11-0 or 10-1 is a strong, strong possibility. And either way, if you're coming in 10-1, you're a win over Ohio State and a Big Ten championship win away from not only winning the Big Ten, but also making the college football playoff again. Functionally, a 10-1 Michigan and an 11-0 Michigan are basically the same, I think. But, you look at the rest of their schedule, and it's just, their schedule so far has not been much. And they've already gotten through Maryland, who looks like they might be the third most likely team in the East to beat Michigan. And Wisconsin, do they have Wisconsin on the schedule? They got to get through today at Iowa, but they're up 13-0 early in the third quarter against Iowa. At Kinnick was always kind of like a little bit of a trappy game to me. You got Penn State at home. You got Ohio State on the road. I genuinely don't know who else is going to. Michigan State looks terrible. I don't know who else is going to be challenging this team.
No, they're going to be favored until they get to Columbus. I think the schools of thought on this is always interesting. Do fans want Michigan to be 11-0 or like 0-11 or 6-5 or whatever? Does the joy of the losses during the regular season, like say 5 losses, does that collective joy outdo the joy of beating an 11-0 Michigan when they have national title hopes? Like, you better really make the most of that one loss and really enjoy it. Because I think for a fan, it can be fun watching Michigan struggle week to week, but is it better to watch just the final collapse at the end?
Well, I think my question there is, go back through Ohio State's wins over Michigan this century. Which are the ones that people take the most joy in? Outside of 2001, where it was this incredible anomaly, it's probably, 2002, but that's an Ohio State stakes kind of thing. Outside of that, it's 2006, which is a year that Michigan was incredible and then lost. It was 2018, a year when Michigan was incredible and favored and then just got stomped. You will notice I have not talked about 2008 or 2009 yet in that conversation. And I feel like this is one of these, like 2010. None of those years were years that Ohio State fans. It's like you remember those games, but those are not the ones that when Ohio State fans are gathering to tailgate or whatever, those are not the ones that are the first ones that people are bringing up at those tailgates. So, I think to me, this is a very difficult thing for Ohio State fans to reconcile. But to me, Ohio State fans enjoy it more, and it's a more meaningful win for them and a more memorable win for them when Michigan is good enough for it to kind of mean something.
It just means more when Michigan comes in at 11-0 or 9-2, which is probably like the best they can hope for in most years. But yeah, this year, especially after last year, beating Ohio State last year, they're coming in confident. The fans are coming in confident. So something has to give. And I think most fans should want an 11-0 Michigan, even though clearly you can't root for them and you should never be upset if they lose. But if you have your druthers, and an 11-0 Michigan team coming in here is probably the best choice, assuming Ohio State is going to win.
Well, I mean, go back to the last few years, and how many years has Michigan come into that game with their fans reasonably confident they were going to win? 2018, I think. Go back before that, 2011. I don't know that any of the other Urban Meyer years they felt particularly great about things. 2006 before then, 2005, 2004. I mean, it's
16.
It is, yeah. 16 is true. That's a good one. But again, I mean, that's another one that Ohio State fans will. They are not playing highlights of the 2008 Ohio State Michigan game on the scoreboard. You see that Curtis Samuel run all the time on that Ohio State Stadium scoreboard. Kevin, do we have any other questions? All right, we are done, which means we're done. Thank you guys all for joining us. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy answering your questions. Again, without you guys here, it's just us talking to each other, and I'm tired of talking to Tony. So I'm glad to have you guys here to talk to as well. I've said that to you off the air plenty of times, so you know I mean it. We do genuinely appreciate you guys all being here. We'll be back after the game, of course, for our usual post-game show with our usual team of analysts and post-game interviews, and then Tony and I doing our post-game Buckeye Weekly Instant Reaction show. That'll all start right at the final gun. As soon as that clock hits 0, that post-game show will start. So make sure you are subscribed to youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit that bell as well so you get notified, so you get a little ding on your phone as a reminder to pop online and watch that post-game show, because we get to talk Rutgers, Tony, and you don't want to miss that.
Nope.
Dynamite drop in.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you guys all for joining us. We'll talk to you after the game.